Just waiting for everyone to just stream in. This is where we were saying it would be very nice if we have some elevator music to sort of like just set the tone. But yeah.
You may turn on some music.
I don't know if we can project it to everyone. So that's the thing we haven't quite figured out.
I think when you share screen, there's an option that you can choose
To share music as well.
Yeah, share music from your Spotify or whatever. Yeah, I sort of remember that.
Okay. Okay, I shall explore that after this. Can't seem to find that function for now. Okay, we'll start in a minute. Just waiting for our last few couple of people to stream in. Okay, it's 10. I think it's good to start now, and everyone else later can sort of just tune in. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live Ask Me Anything session on the flavors of product management with Zhong and Zhibo, who are here today. I think we're very, very lucky to have their time. Before we start the session proper, I just wanted to do a quick introduction. So my name is Hilary, and I'm from the Singapore Global Network, which is a division under the Economic Development Board of Singapore. Together with a couple of folks in the community, we actually started up this thing called Tech Plus 65 to sort of bridge the tech community based in Singapore with other Singaporeans and friends of Singapore who are based overseas at this point in time. So as part of this series of virtual events, we've come up with this particular Ask Me Anything session today. And yeah, here we are. Before we go on, let me just cover a couple of ground rules for us. So please look at the Q&A function in the toolbar, and you can actually post any questions that you have there. Thanks everyone for submitting the questions when you registered. We'll try and cover as many of them as possible. If not, we'll have a section later where you can just post any other additional questions that you have. So please just share them there. And also just a note for everyone, we will be recording this session so that we can also share a play of it afterwards. Yeah. Okay, so maybe without further ado, could I get the both of you to just introduce yourselves to the audience? Anyone can start.
Zhibo, please.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to meet all of you. My name is Zhibo. Right now, I'm managing the product team for deliveries at Grab. So the deliveries product at Grab covers Grab Food, Grab Mart, Grab Express, so on and so forth. So everything related to deliveries and the logistics. So I have been with Grab for about 5 years. So the first half of the journey at Grab, I was managing the transport team. So Grab was organized by Tech Family. So I was managing transport tech family and core experience tech families in my first 2.5 years. So core experience tech family basically covers the passenger app that consumers are using and the driver app that drivers are using. So in 2018, I went to set up the food team. So I launched Grab Food, and from there it expanded to deliveries. So Grab is actually my second job. My first job was with Garena. Now it's called C Group. I was lucky to be the first PM in Garena, and I basically built the product team for Garena before I left. So that's my career journey. So for my studies, my undergrad was at National University of Singapore. I did double degree. My first major was finance in business administration. My second degree is with computing. For my master's study, I did optimization, which is a bit interdisciplinary among engineering, mathematics, and business. So it's optimization applied to supply chain. So as you can see, my study and background is a bit here and there, but I guess it's pretty well suited for product management.
Wait, I have to say something on behalf of everyone. Thank you for Grab Food and Grab Deliveries. Super thankful, especially in this current climate, and for Shopee too. So yeah, Zhong, yourself?
Yeah, cool. It's very, very great. Always great to talk to Zhibo. Actually, I owe Zhibo a thanks for my job now. I'll come back to that part. So currently, I work at Shopee, and I take care of the search and recommendation product group. So essentially, we build the search engine and recommender system at Shopee. Whenever you search for anything as a buyer or seller, or you see a personalized user experience, whether that's a different ranking of different products or personalized messages that you receive, that's powered by our team. And our mission is to connect users to what they may want at scale. Every day we enable more than 12 million users to find things relevant and interesting to them among more than 1 billion products and content available at Shopee across 8 different markets. So prior to that, I was working at a competitor to Zhibo's called Uber. So I was working on product partnership in Uber, where we expand Uber's reach beyond their Uber app. So you may get Uber from Google Maps, you may get Uber from Facebook chatbot, Amazon Alexa. In China, we did Baidu Map and financials Alipay. We also worked with locally Lazada across the world with Emirates, Qantas, all kinds of companies in EMEA and APAC. And it's sort of a growth effort. And prior to that, I spent many years in Europe building AI startups. So why did I say that I owe my job to Zhibo is because first, without Zhibo's effort, that C Group perhaps wouldn't be what it is today. And I think, Shopee is part of C Group, and we branch out from the original gaming business, and in 4.5 years, it becomes the e-commerce platform as we see today. And the second, if Grab hadn't done a great job, thanks to Zhibo again, that we wouldn't have exited Southeast Asia and wouldn't be finding a new opportunity in Shopee. So that's actually put us connections. And as for my background, I did my training in, I'm trained as an engineer, so I did my bachelor in computer science in Shanghai Jiaotong University in China, and then I went to Switzerland to do my master's in computer science with specialization in machine learning in ETH Zurich. So that's why my career has always been around, the sort of a high-tech area where I'm intrinsically interested in how to apply machine learning and artificial intelligence in making our everyday life a bit more efficient and convenient. So it's very great to have the chance to chat with Zhibo and to share our thoughts with everyone here.
Well,
Thanks.
that was an interesting angle, Zhongnan. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing your background. I think I'll definitely like to sort of go a bit deeper into each of those experiences that you've had. But maybe just to start us all off with a warm-up question. If the working world were the animal kingdom, which species would product managers be and why? And we'd love to hear from both of you on this. Hopefully you guys pick different animals so we have interesting perspectives.
Well, I can go first. It's an interesting question. So you see there's an animal behind me, but that's not my answer. My answer will be octopus, potentially a giant octopus. What's the reason? So actually octopus is amongst the most intelligent animals in the world. And it's also a very curious animal. Whenever they encounter a new object, they are going to thoroughly examine and explore the object. And also octopus can do multitasking. It has 8 tentacles, right? And well, although octopus is soft body, so that it doesn't seem very aggressive to people, but actually giant octopus lives in deep seas. It can handle a lot of pressure. So a good PM can also handle pressure pretty well and do multitasking and communicate with different functions. What else? Well, I just want to clarify, right? Octopus may not be evil, although I know Dr. Octopus is kind of the mastermind behind the superheroes, but there are also a lot of good octopus out there, and they will be building stuff for humankind. That's my answer. Over to you, Zhong.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. It touches a lot of very important points of our daily work. My choice would be a fox. So, I mean, it depends on the context, right? Some people may think fox is bad. Actually, to me, it's actually quite interesting and quite cute and a nice thing. Besides, I use Firefox a lot of times. I think this comes from, I'm not sure how many of you guys know about this, Isaiah Berlin. He's a British philosopher. He had a famous essay called The Hedgehog and the Fox. So he was describing the difference between a democratic society and an authoritarian one. But the general idea was that the hedgehog is something that knows one big thing. It knows how to burrow. And the fox knows many, many, many small things. And they are not particularly good at anything that they do, right? They're not the best in any particular skill that they are doing. For example, they're not the most sneaky, they're not the most smart, they don't have the best nose, they don't run the fastest. But it is because that they have such a versatile skills and they're able to adapt to their environment by using different skills that they are able to survive quite well and deal with different kind of situations very well. And how that is related to product manager is, I think we're not experts, most of us. There are a lot of people who understand each of the things that we do much better than we are. You don't have to talk about how much deeper the engineers understand technology than us, right? The business owner that we serve, they run the business. Perhaps some of the customer support and the CX people on the ground line understand more the first-hand pain points that our customers facing. But we do a lot of these, and we have all the skills, and we adapt ourselves to the problem that we're facing, and we're very nimble about it. So that's why I think it's close to a fox. And also the color of a firefox is the color of a Shopee t-shirt. So I have to support Shopee.
I feel like being evil and have a follow-up question, which is then, what animal would you place all your other teammates as, all the other different teams, like the tech team and the business unit team and everything? But I shan't go there. Maybe we move on to something a little bit different. If you could pick one day from the past week, and this excludes weekends, or you can include weekends if you wish to do so, could you describe a schedule of a typical day? And I think also what might be quite interesting for the audience is if you could also add in, what has changed because of this whole circuit breaker period. Like, how do you also still carry out your role in a virtual setting?
A day in the past week. Today is Tuesday.
One of the days in the past week. Yep.
I'll pick last Tuesday. Let me just check my calendar and make sure I describe it accurately. Okay, last Tuesday was April 28th. Okay. Okay, my work started at 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. I had a meeting with data analytics team and product team to talk about different A/B testing and experiment for Grab Food. Okay, and then at 10:30, I had one-on-one with another head of product from a tech family at Grab. And 11 a.m. was the Grab all hands. Yeah, so on that day we had the all hands for the entire Grab, and I actually represented Grab Food, actually Delivery's tech family, to present our new products to the entire company. Okay, and so see what else. Okay, around 1:30, so I had a team meeting with the different functional leads in my tech families. So at Grab, for every tech family, we have 5 O's. So that is product owner, myself, engineering owner, design owner, data owner, and business owners. And we meet up regularly to discuss different strategies and team management issues. Okay, moving on. So in my team, there are different work streams. So I had one-on-one with a few work stream lead. And also I had a meeting with my boss. Okay, at 3 p.m., I had the specs review. So every Tuesday, it was the specs review session for Delivery's product. So we went through 3 specs, and then at 5 p.m., I had a meeting with my business counterpart. So basically the business owner. Actually on that day, interesting. So last Tuesday was actually quite interesting. I had my one-on-one with 2 business owners. So one is for food, the other one is for Grab Express. Okay, at around 7 p.m., that was my final meeting. So basically we're talking about the future team size for the entire product team, for the whole company, not just within deliveries. So that was my last Tuesday.
I'm just like, you're still on the same day. Wow.
Yeah, so
like meetings all the way. Wow.
a lot of meetings, right? A lot of one-on-ones. And what has changed? Well, those meetings become virtual. So when I was in office, I used to have one-on-ones while working. So like I basically I worked across the company and had one-on-one with the person who worked alongside me. Actually, that was more effective in my opinion, and also more intimate.
And also probably healthier.
Healthier, definitely.
What about for yourself, Zhong? Which day are you going to pick?
I cheat and then I just learn that copy from Zhibo. I'll go through my calendar. I'll talk about Wednesday. So I start usually a bit late, so around 9:30 or 10. And I usually start my day with, I put half an hour booking on my calendar. Usually the first thing that I go into work is to sort of plan on my day a little bit. So list out the 3 things that I wanted to achieve for the day. On that day, that was, we have a product line meeting, and we have a bunch of one-on-ones. And then we have the weekly recruiting meeting with the recruiters. So that you will see that actually 3 things collide with what Zhibo was talking about, right? So we have the sort of a town hall-like meeting where you communicate to a group of people. That was for me for recommendation. So we have like 60, 70 different people from different functions joining that meeting, and where we talk about our progress in our KPIs and the roadmap, what we have done in the last quarter and what we plan to do in the next quarter. And then in the afternoon, we have a bunch of one-on-ones. I think like I have 4 or 5 one-on-ones with my direct reports. So just to, check in with them, understand, what are the things that they are working on, how they progress, and what are the problems that I can help to solve, and what is their plan for the rest of the week and next week before we talk again. Then there are a bunch of very interesting meetings that I did in the middle, which are like review certain strategic projects that we do. Like I usually help them to prioritize different things, because usually there are more requests than the resource that we have. And then we really need to quickly come in and say, okay, is this still the thing that we want to work on? So in the recruiter meeting, yeah, that one was a little tough because due to the COVID situation, many of the planned hires couldn't join. So we're discussing different options that we have, like how about remote them on board and onboard them remotely, and what are the onboarding procedure would look like, because we have a standard process we come up with in the team, but certain things are not able to happen as smoothly. We're also talking about like there are people who forgo their offers because they feel that Singapore is not safe anymore. That's unfortunate, but we understand where they come from. Yeah, and then I end my day. I thought I had an interview, and then I end my day around 7:30, and I usually close that with like 15 minutes to look at, okay, what I did in the day and what is things that I crossed over. I happen to be able to check all the 3 things that I planned to, but not I wasn't able to do that like in every day. Yeah. So what changed during COVID? I think the meeting definitely takes longer, at least for me, because I like to draw things on a whiteboard. So sometimes it's much quicker to just draw the things and show people my idea. And by doing that virtually, it's a little bit harder. Of course, you can come up use an iPad or anything. But I still feel like, 2 persons stand in front of a whiteboard is the best way to brainstorm about the problem. And I think I realized I had to speak differently. I have to emphasize more of what we want so that people understand where we are. And we need to speak slowly because sometimes there are delays and people don't understand what you say. They cannot read your body language. They cannot just ask the person by them, like, what does that guy mean? And also it's harder to get feedback from people, right? It's harder to get questions. If you're in the same room and you see each other, it's easier to solicit that questions from people, and now it's getting harder. So we really so after every big meeting, so we sort of do a survey. We send out a survey to people and to see, if this meeting achieve what you want, and is there anything that you're interested in that we haven't time or haven't the topic to cover that.
I think that actually gave quite a good insight, I think, into what you guys also do as product managers. It's funny you should mention the onboarding thing. So today we were actually having an internal discussion, and we were just saying that some companies are getting quite creative about how to onboard new hires in this whole climate. So people have been starting to deliver things like flowers as part of the onboarding process, just because you can't meet them in person. So yeah, some creative ways. Okay. For the next question, I thought we could keep it kind of an open discussion. And you guys can just feel free to jump on and make it a chat. I wanted to talk a little bit about Southeast Asia. So Southeast Asia and both Shopee and Grab operate in this region. It is a really very complex and diverse market. Amongst the various products and of tech families that both of you are involved in, they're both regional in nature, and many of the features are also regional in nature. So as a product manager, what are some challenges that you see which are unique to this region? And what are some strategies that you've used so far to build products that could cater across the markets?
Very interesting question. I think Shopee and Grab may have different approaches. So Hillary, as you said, right, Southeast Asia has many different countries. They have different cultures. They speak different languages, and like the user behaviors could be very different. And so as such, our products needs to be able to adapt to local context. Actually, Grab itself has a hyperlocal approach for product management. But I think the difference here is, correct me if I'm wrong, Zhongnan. So I think Shopee publish different apps in different countries.
Yeah.
I think Grab has just one Grab app across the region. So as such, there are unique challenges to it. And I think also users in different countries may not be aware that the product and services we offer actually differ from country to country. For example, we actually offer a lot more services in Indonesia compared to Singapore. What are different in Indonesia? For example, we have Grab Assistant in Indonesia. So Grab Assistant basically is a service that allow you to ask the driver to buy anything. It's like running an errand for you. For example, if you want to buy a Panadol for a sudden toothache, you can just book a Grab Assistant ride. So driver can go and buy a Panadol from a pharmacy. So that's not available in Singapore. And we have Grab Health in Indonesia as well. And I think in Jakarta, it is last year, we had Grab Heli. So basically you can hire a helicopter.
That's like a stunt that Uber used to do.
Yeah, and we also have Tuk Tuk in Thailand. So the whole bunch of different services in each market, and even for Grab Food. So the Grab Food service in Singapore is very different from what we offer in Indonesia. And so when we build our product, so one for different verticals, we call different product lines as verticals there. And we want to make sure so each vertical can be configured separately. And when we build a feature, so of course there are also a lot of similarities, I mean common things among different countries for our users. So there are still more features that are common regionally, right? So, but for those unique features to our market, we want to make it configurable. So we can decide from our backend whether we want to enable this module for a particular country. Actually, different cities in different countries will also be a bit different from each other. So what's your thoughts, Jonah?
Yeah, would you say that is similar? Or?
Yeah, I think this is actually very good to discuss, right? So when I first came to Shopee, I was also surprised at that why we keep 7 different apps, right? And then I realized ride sharing seems to be, whether it's ride sharing or delivery, right, seems to be more localized as a business and as a product, right, compared to e-commerce, let's say. E-commerce by nature is something that you want to actually bring like whoever people are onto one platform, right? And then also Shopee has this cross-border business which you ship from like countries like China, Japan, and Korea to Southeast Asia, and now we're enabling the whole Southeast Asia to sell to each other. So it's not as localized, right? So in Grab, although I understand that although you divide by countries, but you run like the business by itself by the GM on each of the city, right? So that was how Uber did it. I assume Grab did similar things, right?
Mm.
Yeah, right. So we sort of need so we sort of need to say like, okay, the app needs to be able to adapt to what these country happens, and then they also need to have a sort of a platform in the back end. So what we did is that we have 7 actually. We have 1 consumer app for each of these country, right? They share a large set of common code base. And then there are a bunch of features that are developed for specific countries that just that living in that code base. And then that's for the buyer side of things. And then for the seller side of things, is that a lot of things are actually just shared. It's just one thing. Because we find that for the seller, there are more things in common than the buyer side of need. But of course, the flexibility comes with the burden of maintaining 8 different code base, and the recurring theme from the engineering team is that, oh, it's really painful. Yeah. And as regard to, I mean, coming back to the theme of the question, like what is unique to this region, I always make this metaphor to people. I was like, Southeast Asia is a geographic concept, right? You cannot call it a market. It's not one market. It's not like EU where you sort of could call it one market. It's not like China, like not like US. It's like India without the federation, and you scatter all the states into sea and you put them around, right? So because it's so geographically different, they have different cultural background, they have different political systems, and the economical development stage are very different. So there's ASEAN, but it's sort of just a man-made connection because they happen to be surrounded by the same sea, the South China Sea. And so we tend to look at each country differently, and we try to build the diversity into our team by intentionally hiring people coming from each of these countries, and also by intentionally traveling to those countries, talk to the users, understand what they need. Also let the local business give us insight like, okay, what are the things that they want to do? I think this is something that has been done quite well at Shopee. But due to the current situation, yeah, it's very hard or almost impossible to travel. So I think that's a challenge that we are facing. Like, how do you still get connected to the user on the ground?
Yeah, I fully agree with Zhong. I think understanding user is very critical. So we actually also emphasize this a lot at Grab. And for myself, actually, before COVID, I went to Indonesia at least twice per month just to be connected to the user. And actually, my team visits there much more often. And we also have product ops teams. So previously we call them country product managers. Now we call them product ops at Grab, so they can provide country specific insights, and also like give us requirement that cater to the country's needs. And I think another difference between Grab and Shopee is Grab is kind of pursuing a super app strategy. So on the consumer side, everything like parked under one app. At C, I think you have Shopee on the e-commerce side, you have Garena on the gaming side, and there are other smaller lines, right? So it's just different approach.
Thanks. Actually, I think that might be quite a good segue into another question. So we've gotten quite a number of questions in the Q&A section, and I was just looking through them and also consolidating some of them. I think one of the questions, if I could just paraphrase across them, is actually both of you have had extensive experience working in product management. For Zhibo, yourself, your experience in C, and then now in various teams across Grab. And then Zhong actually all over the world, from Uber and then the startups, and then now here at Shopee. How has the role of product manager and I guess the product management culture differed between the different places that you've worked in? And feel free to cut it by whichever way it's meaningful to you, whether it's by country or by company or yeah, by team even.
Okay, I can start first. Well, I only worked at 2 companies before, and I guess C is a bit different from 5 years ago. Actually, could be very different. I can only refer to my experience back then.
Zhibo, I wouldn't tell whoever back then.
Yeah, I don't have any concern about that. So I remember like when I was at Garena, so we actually want to move fast. So basically, there's kind of a motto called small step, run fast. So we basically, if we have an idea, we are going to implement it fairly fast. And then we see the results. If the result is good, then we iterate from there. If result is not quite ideal, then we analyze the reason. Then we pivot towards another hypothesis, and we move on and then build new features. So at Grab, it's a bit different, especially with its current size. So we emphasize a lot more on rigor, on understanding users and doing more in-depth user research, like run A/B tests. And so actually, internally, we also had debate on whether we need to run a little bit faster. But the thing is, if there's any critical bugs or is a very important corner that we didn't manage to cover, it could impact a lot of people's life in Southeast Asia. So we also need to be cautious about that. So I think it's basically a fine balance between speed of execution and good rigor.
Yeah, I think I can relate with what Zhibo is saying. I think it depends on the nature of the product that you are working on and the stage that your product reaches, right? So there's like product life cycle. So I started my career in PM in B2B product in Europe. And there, essentially, we're trying to sell an AI software to a big corporate, right? So I realized like there, and my boss and my people from my company mostly come from Google, and it's a lot of rigor, I think, right? It's really a lot of methodology and like, okay, so here's the customer needs, here's the research that we have done, here is, the feedback we get directly from the clients, so therefore it's our strategy, and here's the things, here's a roadmap, here's the things that you should be doing, and then you sort of go out and test that out. And it's also because it's B2B software at early stage. in a way, it's a little bit hard to be agile, right? So you don't want to go to present to the CEO of a big company like this day one thing, and in 4 weeks you meet him again, it's completely another thing, and usually that kind of thing doesn't fly. So you need a lot of thought before you start the execution. And as I moved on to B2C software, or like more consumer software, and especially in Southeast Asia, I could understand why like C Group and Shopee have these, they call it rerun. In Zhibo's words, like small step, quick run. I think that originates from Tencent, right, which is investor to Shopee, to C Group, is because the gaming business and the e-commerce business is something that, there's no like rules that, if you do this, it will must fly, right? There's no recipe for success per se, right? And your competitors are, changing what they do all the time. And as you're doing this, right? You ship to run, right? You ship something, and if it works, okay, great. If it doesn't, you move on, right? And in a way, if you put it not so nicely, you throw the shit to the wall and see what works. But of course, you got to systematically throw the different kinds of shit onto the wall. Otherwise, you end up doing all kinds of random things. And as Zhibo said, right, so if your product reach a certain stage and you're touching so many different kinds of customers, and if their livelihood depends on you, right? For both of us, we work in a marketplace model where, a lot of people just look at the consumer side of things, but they're also the supply side of things, those SMEs and micro entrepreneurs, whether they're a Grab driver or delivery courier, or a Shopee seller, right? So they earn money from this, and that's their bread and butter. So if you do something wrong, especially on that side, then perhaps some people would not have money this month. And if it were in a country like US or some part of Indonesia, they don't have money for the day, and some people may starve. So you got to be really, really careful in what we do, and think about, okay, what do you want to do, and the rigor and the A/B test comes in.
Thanks. Okay, another question that has come up from quite a number of people is actually about the PM scene, the product management scene, specifically in Singapore. So for the both of you, and I think Zhibo, you've been working in Singapore for longer than Zhongnan on this, but would love to hear like your different perspectives. What is one thing that you think Singapore has got to offer product managers looking to grow in their career, and maybe one area that you think more could be done for the field here?
Well, Singapore is the headquarters for many big tech companies in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And also it's probably the regional office for many tech giants overseas. So I think from this perspective, like Singapore is a good place for product managers to start their career, because there are also a lot of big tech companies are willing to hire like fresh graduate in Singapore. What can be done more? I think a few aspects. One is I wish the talent pool in Singapore can be bigger. Right? It's by and large still very limited, although we can attract talents from other parts of the world. But I mean, if you compare to the States, to China, to India, it's a fact that we don't have enough tech talents as we wish. So that's one. And two is Singapore as a market itself is very small. And the economic conditions and also the user behavior are actually very different from other bigger countries in the region. For example, Indonesia is very different from Singapore. Like, just talk about cashless penetration. Well, in Indonesia, we still have many people who don't have a bank account, not to say a credit card. Whereas this is much less an issue in Singapore. So, so Indonesia, actually, for any company to go there, and if they are consumer facing, right, you need to offer cash as a payment option. And there are specific nuances related to cash payment, right? It's just an example. And what can be developed better, I think, is, and also, like, I think the 2B scene in Singapore and also in Southeast Asia is still very nascent. Well, I see, like, on the 2C side, it's developing quite fast. So I think there could be more investment in the 2B areas in the future.
Yeah, I want to continue on this, right? I totally agree with Zhibo that, like, the talent is something that we are we're always looking for. We always want that there are local talents, more and more local talents that we can tap into. I feel like being a tech hub, like Singapore, this is something new, right? It's like, even 5 years ago, like Singapore, if you tell people that Singapore wants to become the tech hub of, Southeast Asia or even like Asia, like, people will be laughing at you, like, ha 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 ha, this is like a finance center, or the best students in the country, the best talents are in the government, they go to law and the finance and the business, medicine, you name it, right? I think it's switching, right? The big company have the hub here, and we also have homegrown companies like Shopee and Grab. Also, I think that's a good thing, especially I believe that many people in the audience are young students. I think the environment that you're facing now are much better than even like 3 years ago. And what Singapore has to offer, I think it's actually a good hub in the middle of the whole region, right? So it's close to everywhere in the region. And maybe Philippines is furthest, but it's actually close to everywhere. So it's very easy for you to travel, to go to any of these places in the region. And also the country is very convenient and reliable. So make these as your hub, and you are able to build a regional perspective for what is going on here. I think that's one of the advantages that Singapore has. And also its diversity, right? So the people here generally come from different places. So learn from them and understand their perspective, and be proud of the diversity that you have and you're able to relate with. It's something that is very important, I believe, for being a PM in this region. What could be done more? I feel like maybe community. I think, like, of course, Tech 65 and webinar like these, they're more and more like that. But compared to, let's say, Silicon Valley or China or many European countries, it's still quite immature, let's say, right? Like, I used to go to the tech community, just grassroots community activities in Zurich and in Berlin and in Paris. All of them are legit, right? A lot of interesting things are happening, and people bounce back and forth about their ideas, and they're willing to share the cool things that they're doing. I think that a little bit of it's culture thing, that they're more willing to sort of show that in Western culture. But I think it's also because of the history of the background, people feel like, doing, I have high respect for lawyers and people in finance. but they're just enough people who think that, okay, that's something that is, boring, and for some specific people, if you want to be cool, you got to work in tech. And if you want to work in tech, basically there are just few kinds of jobs that are interesting. If you don't want to be an engineer, perhaps the next choice is to become a PM, right? I think these sort of a community is something that I feel like we could do more, and each of us, like, people like me and Zhibo, we could contribute.
Yeah, I just want to add on to Zhong's last 2 points, right? I think on diversity, I fully agree that the diversity in Singapore is very good, and we have talents from all over the world. Actually, I myself value diversity a lot, and I believe when people coming from different backgrounds brainstorm together, ideas tend to sparkle. For example, in my current team, right? I think my team has 20 plus product managers right now, and they come from, I think, more than 10 countries.
Cool.
And actually more than half are females. So generally, there are good balance and diversity.
Do you feel that in this part of the world they have more female PMs?
More.
Not necessarily. So because I also checked, at least at Grab, the gender balance in other teams. So I think my team, the ratio of female PMs are pretty good. It's not overwhelming. I think it's 50+%. Yeah, so pretty well balanced. And on your point on community, I fully agree that there needs to have further development here. So there was one PM in my team. He recently went back to the States, and he basically shared with me that when he was in Silicon Valley, and he found it very convenient to basically discuss random ideas with random folks. And yeah. Okay, yeah.
I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was from Uber Eats, yeah. And then, but he found it a bit more challenging here.
Yeah.
So it's part of the reason why he wanted to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm happy to see the tech scene is actually getting more and more attention right now, and also like venues like this is a good opportunity for us to reach out. Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to one thing that you mentioned, because Zhong also reacted to it, the gender diversity thing. So do you also see it the same in Shopee? Is it roughly about equal? Because I think some folks also asked that in the Q&A, so great that we could also address that.
I want to clarify of the gender and then diversity, right? So gender, and I feel actually it's better to have more women in tech, right? So I definitely come from a very different background, like in Europe or like Silicon Valley companies. I feel like too many males, and especially white males, and like it just doesn't feel right. And especially like the stereotype of aggressive white male standing tall and speak in a way like they assume that they know everything. So I feel like at least to me, that in this part of the world there are more female product managers and product leaders, and then they're able to relate with people and deal with conflicts much better. I mean, of course, we're not trying to be stereotyping here, but I am just speaking from personal experience. So I think that's actually very good. In Shopee, we also have a lot of female PMs. In terms of diversity, I think Shopee's diversity are a different kind, right? So it's more focused on the region, right? So we try to build people from the region, Southeast Asia and North Asia, right? Like we have a lot of people from countries around here, right? And then in my team, the same, like we have 20 some PMs and around 10 countries, and also speak 10 different languages. So I'm proud of that. But I think compared to Grab, we have less, let's say, almost.
Because Grab has quite a number of different tech centers around the world.
Yeah.
So even for my team, I think the development actually comes from 4 different tech centers, at least 4.
Yeah, it's a hard job to manage across time zones.
Yeah, I think it's very important to hire female tech leaders.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not just about female PMs, also like female product leads, right? Can bring in more diversity. And I think, I mean, based on my experience, I think female PMs generally have better customer empathy.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like we should have more community events and then more women in tech kind of things as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we are almost close to the end of our session, and there's been a ton of questions. Thanks everyone for being so enthusiastic. We're trying to sort of just aggregate the questions and answer them. I think one big bucket that we've yet to sort of address is a lot of people have been asking about, what does it take to become a PM? What are some skill sets that you need? So if I were to just kind of maybe paraphrase this a little bit, if you could go back in time to when you were just at the cusp or at the beginning of your product management journey, what's one piece of advice that you would give to yourself as an aspiring PM? Could be to do with skill sets or, I don't know, experiences, or you could use some cool cliche quote. I think that would be fine too.
Let me see. One piece of advice. Let me just find the book. There's one book I'm reading right now. Yeah, it's here. So, not sure whether you can see it.
What's that?
It's called What You Do Is Who You Are.
What you do is who you are.
It's a new book written by Ben Horowitz. So it's taught about team culture, how to build a great culture in a company. But I was referring to one of his earlier book. I think many of us have read it. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Yeah, so I remember like this one line that really resonated well with me. It's called, it's a good idea to ask yourself, what am I not doing? So I think as a product manager, very often it's easy to think about new features and do addition. But what is really hard is to do subtraction. And it really pushes you to think harder how to prioritize with limited resource and how to achieve the biggest impact with what you have on hand. And there's another kind of quote in the book, which also is, I find it quite interesting. It's something like, if you need to eat shit, don't nibble.
Don't what?
Don't nibble, so don't take a small bite. Yeah, just do it. Right? Yeah, I think if there are like hard decisions you need to make, you just need to think through it clearly and go ahead with it. I think as PM, right?
We talk about the shit word a lot. I would add like one thing that I remember, was it British or some proverb that is, if you are in knee-high shit, keep going. Which is it's like if you're in really difficult situation and then how to get out of it, really just like keep going, do what is right, and you need to have these grit to move on and to get things done. Yeah.
So I think as a relative junior or new PM, it's very easy to have strong emotional attachment to your product. And because of this, it's very, very difficult to cut off a feature or say goodbye to a product. But sometimes it's necessary to do so. And it takes time to learn this skill.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true. Yeah, like I remember many years ago, one of my manager told me this. I was like just out of college and I didn't understand then. It was like, keep a professional distance to what you do. I think that's actually very true, which is, not too close and not too far, right? Which is, for example, like use product is that you should have enough ownership, you should have enough skin in the game that you care about it, you care about what users care about. But you shouldn't be like seeing it really as your baby, as something that, okay, only you can touch it, nobody else can touch it, and you definitely don't want to give it away. I think like, especially as a junior PMs, that there are many decisions that are beyond your control, and I think have too much of that, you know, this is my thing and I really wanted to do it this way and that way. It's usually not very healthy, right? You know, this usually happens later when you become, you know, those sort of legendary, you know, PM, like you know, Zhang Xiaolong, Alan Zhang from for WeChat, or Steve Jobs, or Elon Musk, you know, this kind of people that you sort of could do that. But for most of the PMs, it's a game of compromise. So if I would advise like the skills that you would need to learn, I think it'd be a good problem solver. Like, you know, it goes back to the fox metaphor that you sort of want to be able to deal with all kinds of changing environment. The problems that you're dealing with are new and they're different. So you got to be a good problem solver. You have a large toolkit, different mental models, and you can deal with it. And the other thing is be curious and learn. You know, most of the things that we do, we're not trained in it, so be curious in things and in different things, and learn fast and learn quickly and learn efficiently. And the last thing is know when to compromise, or who was saying it? Ben Horowitz or someone else saying it, know when to quit, right? Which is just know when to say, okay, like this is not the thing that I should fight for. I'm not going to fight for it. I'm going to choose to focus on my energy on something else. And if I want to be cliche, to quote someone, I think I would quote Jeff Bezos, that be stubborn with vision and flexible with details. That, you know, if there's a certain goal that you have set for yourself and your product, and you strongly believe in it, and then this is a vision, and then you got to be stubborn with it. But then, you know, the path to there and the details, like especially in design, like how you should look at this way or that way, you know, you should be flexible about it.
I just want to add on one more thing. I think it's very important to be humble. So it's actually one of the core principles at Grab. I believe like C Group has a similar principle around humility. I think it's a very common mistakes that relatively junior PMs that tend to make. So when you become more comfortable at product management, you know, you have some small achievement. Very often you could think that, hey, I'm really good at it, and I know the customers very well, and I know what to build and what not to build for this product. And very often you may think that, hey, this request from, for example, my boss or from the CEO doesn't really make sense. Understandably, it is, I mean, many of us actually made the same mistake before. But right now, looking back, actually, it's very important to have humility and understand that some of the asks are actually very valid. And it's just that you may not have the context. So you need to reach out and ask for the context, and you should be willing to do experiment to validate the hypothesis.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very important topic. And this is something that I often tell my team that, you know, it's actually from Dalai Lama, right? So it's being confident and being humble are not contradictory. You could be both at the same time. And to many juniors, they don't understand this, right? It's like being confident is knowing what you are able to do. being humble is to know what you are not able to do. And if you to think about as Socrates saying that the more you know, the more you don't know, because if you think your knowledge circle is getting bigger and bigger and you have more boundaries that you know that there are a lot of things that you don't know. Right? So that's about the being humble part, right? And about the things that you know, you really need to say, okay, these are things that I really know, and then I know how to do it well. So you need to strike the tricky balance and to show, okay, these are things that I know how to do. But of course, like being a fox, you're like, you should know that, the density that you have in the area, because water is not two-dimensional, right? It's also three-dimensional. That there's also the density part that it's very shallow too. So you should not assume that you're going to be the expert who understands everything in sort of the circle that you do.
I love how this whole thing spans from like taking big bites of shit and not nibbling all the way to quotes from Dalai Lama. Very, very broad range. Thank you for sharing your snippets of wisdom. I think that's been really, really useful. Much more than anything you could just Google about what does it take to become a product manager. So thanks for that. And I think people can also check out the book that you recommended by Ben Horowitz. I think it's a very good read too. Maybe just before I move on to a bit of time for, maybe if you guys want to just take a look at the questions as well to see if there's any that you want to just answer offhand. And in the meantime, while they look through, just give them a couple of minutes. Just wanted to say, if any of you are interested to find out more about job opportunities at Shopee or Grab, you can scan the QR codes with your phones there. If you'd like to find out more about events like this, also please sign up with the Singapore Global Network here. So I'll just leave this page on, and maybe if you guys could, I think we have a bit more time. You could just take a look at all the different questions there and see if there's any that you'd like to just answer live. I tried aggregating most of them already into some of the things that we answered, but yeah, we got many, many, many questions, so definitely wouldn't have been able to answer everything during this session. But if there's any that stand out to you and you
do you want to do it like a round-robin fashion that we just quickly answer as many as we can?
Yeah, we could do that in the time that we have. If you guys are open.
Okay, we can give it a try.
Yeah, feel free to start. And feel free to pick anyone that you want to answer live.
Shall we start from okay, oh, there are votes. I see, got it.
Yeah, like you can just start anything. You just click answer live and you answer it, we clear it, and I answer, we clear it. Let's see if we can, how many we can clear in the end.
You don't have to answer everything because I think there's quite a number of repeated ones as well. So yeah, just maybe you could just go down the list and then pick the ones that you think would be most relevant for you to answer at this point in time. And then yeah, I can do the clearing method.
Yeah, so the top voted question here as PMs, what are some metrics that you guys look at most at your companies, right? I think for different business lines, there are different metrics. And by and large, I will group it under two buckets. So the first one is financial metrics. So things like top line, bottom line metrics, we actually studied it closely every day. And the second one, like experience related metrics. And there's an interesting metrics we actually we actually examine, and we actually make it a KR, the OKR, objective of key results, for different tech family as well. So it's called percentage of perfect journey.
Percentage of what? Perfect journey.
Perfect journey. So probably like transport is more representative for this. I can just briefly describe it. So for a perfect ride, right, as a passenger, right, you start from opening the app. So it shouldn't take too long to open the app, right? It could get loaded pretty fast. And when you tap on the transport service, we should predict where is your pickup and where is your destination. So most often that you want to go from your current location, right? Let's say right now, if you are at your home, then so we know, like, you also saved your home address before, so we know exactly where you want to be picked up. And then we can also predict your drop off. For example, every morning, like before COVID, you are going to your office or you're going to your school, right? So then we can predict the drop off. So you don't need to enter the pickup and drop off again. But even if you want to search for new location, so your preferred result should come up in the top 3 positions. So in the first page, so very easily for you to choose. We actually measure like what's the percentage of the location is in the first spot for your choice, right? So once you start booking, right, you see the price, so we should inform you about the price. You start booking, then you can get allocated pretty fast. Okay, the ETA, estimated time of arrival, should be accurate, shouldn't deviate too much. And when the driver arrives, right, you can easily identify the driver. You can find which car is your car. When you hop onto the car, you have an enjoyable journey. So the car is clean and the driver is friendly. The music isn't too loud. And so basically, you see, we also measure like what's the actual physical experience for this ride. And then once you drop off, right, you should have a good ride. So you need to we see whether you rate this ride as a 5-star ride, right? So if like we have a threshold for a different stage and for different metrics in the stage, and if every stage falls within the threshold, then it is considered as a perfect ride. And we also have a perfect food order, and for different kind of customers like merchant, driver partners, consumers, we define the perfect journey, right? Then we measure like what's the percentage of perfect journey. It's a pretty powerful way to measure experience.
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's something new I haven't thought of. Yeah, thank you. I think that's very insightful.
Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, in the fashion. Okay, what is the pros and cons of being a PM? Versus a software engineer and data scientist. I'll take a step on that. I think so. The pros of being a PM is that if you're a generalist and you want to be able to work in many different kind of things, know different areas like technology, design, user, business, marketing, operations. This is a lot of things that you can learn. And the cons, I think, you have to live with the insecurity that you don't have one skill set you really, really know very well, and you can say, if I do this one thing right, I will always have a job. And this also brings a lot of internal pressure, and also we're dealing with a lot of external pressures, as Zhibo talked about in his octopus metaphor. And as a software engineer and data scientist, I think these two are very different. But if we just use software engineer, I think the pros is that if you really love coding and solving interesting problems, I think that's great. I started my career as a software engineer, and I really loved that time. Like, coding is fun. It just feels fun. Yeah. And like doing something that you're really passionate about and, progressing it. And I think it's the purity and the capability, the growth that you observe over the years. I think that's really, really great. The cons, I feel, it's really, compared to PM, a lot of times you have a little bit less say in how the product would look like in the end. But it's perhaps just like, it really depends on the company and the stage, right? So in the beginning, it's really like PM, design, and engineer, you sort of have something together. So actually, I think like if you like it, there's not much cons for a software engineer job. Right? If I hadn't chosen this career, I would be a happy software engineer myself.
Yeah, you kind of also answered the next question actually related to it, because how do you switch from a technical skill set to a managerial skill set? Sort of answered in what you mentioned as well.
Yeah, so Yeah, so I just want to add on to what Zhong described just now. I think there's no good or bad about product manager versus software engineers or data scientists. It's just different choices and different way of working. So, you know, like from my master's, I studied at MIT, right? And the mascot of MIT is otters, right? Symbolize engineers, right? I think like otters is just otters and octopus is octopus. They're just different animals. And all animals are pretty good, right? So we don't need to compare apple to an orange. Yeah. What is, so just now there also like the question about like technical skill sets to a manager one. I think like some people also ask like, what's the transition between individual contributor, PM, to a product lead? I think it's very important for you to realize that when you become a product lead or a people manager, then the success of your work is no longer just dependent on your own contribution. It's actually a team effort. So you really need to empower your team and to make sure the total contribution of your team could be uplifted. And it's very important for a manager to really care about the team, team's well-being and team's career progression and team's success. So I think a few things, I mean, probably I'll summarize it into 3 points. So one is always share the context, because as a team lead or people manager, you may have context that your team member doesn't have. So you need to over-communicate and share the context so that they have the necessary information and they can be set up for success. So for me, actually, I have one-on-one with all my team members, not just my direct reports, also my skip levels. So it's pretty time consuming actually, if I want to do it every week, but I feel it's very necessary. And it also provides me good insight and feedback on what is actually going on the ground, right? What's the second one? A second one, I think, is lead by example. So you, as a team manager, actually, your team members look up to you and they will follow you. So you need to be able to walk your talk. So, what's the third one? The third one is actually basically provide enough guidance. So there's a thin line between being a good coach and not micromanaging, right? So I think this is a struggle for many new managers. Actually, like a good approach could be like you need to understand the stuff. So to a certain extent, like for a lot of those details, right? You need to know them, but you only need to kind of intervene when it's absolutely necessary. So you can provide coachings along the way. And again, it's about like empowering your teams, right? When you have built enough trust with your team member, so basically, like like you can totally rely on them to deliver the result. Then you can basically move away from being too hands-on on some of the specific projects. And for me right now, I'm trying to learn to allocate even more time on strategic thinking and planning. So I think it's just a matter of different stages of your career progression. And I mean,
you said it very well, so I wouldn't add on that.
I don't want to keep you both too late, and for everyone else on as well. I think maybe we can just take one last question. So if you just do an eyeball and scan, and if any one question sort of just sticks out at you, let's take that as the last question before we just wrap up the session.
Okay, I'll take probably the next one. What is the career progression for product managers? Well, there are different tracks. There could be people manager tracks. There could also be IC tracks, right? You can be an expert IC PM. but I'll basically perhaps take the general approach, right? So you will start from IC PM, and as a junior PM, you probably will focus on some specific features, right? And then when you progress in your career, then you will start from some specific features to a product focus areas. And at Grab, we call it actually a problem space. Like for example, cancellation can be a problem space. So when you are like more comfortable of handling a problem space, like you can move on to own a specific product. For example, like GrabShare can be a product like for people who haven't used Grab app. So GrabShare is the ride pooling, ride sharing product that we offer across the region. And then afterwards, you can be in charge of a specific product area. So, or like, or a BU. For example, right now, delivery is kind of a BU, and it actually have multiple sub BUs under it. And later on, of course, it depends on the scale of the company, right? So you can also like manage multiple BUs, and then could be the head of product or like the chief product officer of a company. So, you know, many PMs actually move on to launch their own company, or some of them they become the CEO, for example, the CEO of Google, right? Cliche, right? So he was a PM before. And I mean, some other PMs just choose to do something very, very different. Could be a consultant. Could also join the venture capital team. Yeah. So in summary, there are multiple paths, and there's no right answer. I think you need to pick the one that's most suitable for you, and also it depends on the opportunity, right? So like if the opportunity is available to you and you think it worth a try, by all means go ahead, and after careful evaluation.
Yeah, that's pretty well answered. I'll take a step on the, do you have any concerns about losing technical rigor being a PM, or do you keep up with your technical rigor as a PM? Especially for the things that I work on, machine learning and AI related stuff. I feel it's to be honest, it's very hard to keep up with the rigor. And I used to know the mathematics of a lot of the methods that our engineers use. I don't think I know it now. So to that extent, I definitely lose my rigor. I feel especially when you are becoming a people manager, you would realize that actually the people things may consume much more of your time, and you have to intentionally give up something. And I think I got this like from Frances Fry, who was a Harvard professor, and she had this amazing book called The Secret of Service or something. I forgot the name of the book, right? The thesis was, you need to, if you want to be excellent in certain things, you need to be intentionally bad at something else, right? You need to intentionally give up something because your time is limited. And I think I made the intentional choice of losing a lot of the technical rigor, like you know, writing very good code, understanding the architecture with the details, and knowing the latest methods in deep learning. But there are certain things that I want to make sure that I'm really up to date with. But these are the things that usually don't change all the time. It's the first principles, right? What are the first principles in the technical area that you work on, right? What are the most important concepts in machine learning, right? And then you learn these first principles. And as a PM, you a lot of times needs to, when we challenge engineers, you need to understand, okay, is it against the first principles that you know? or it's aligned with that. Or along the latest development, I don't think you need technical rigor to understand it. You just need to understand, okay, what is the concept and how it could be used in your product, and how could you find the right engineers to help you to realize it. So the short answer is, I do have concern. I just sort of give up the things that you are proud of and you have pride, but it's an intentional choice, and perhaps for most people you need to do it. And I think it's okay to do it, at least for me personally.
Thanks. Thank you both of you, Zhibo and Zhong, for taking the time off to share with us all the insights. I think I, for one, have definitely learned a lot from all the things that you guys have shared. So thank you for that. We've come to the end of our session. I know we've got a lot of different questions. I'm sorry not everyone managed to get them answered, but I hope that you guys still found the session very useful. As mentioned, if you just refer to the slide again, if you're interested in career opportunities at either Shopee or Grab, you could just scan your QR link with your phones and then approach those career pages. And if you're interested to find out about more events like that, do sign up with the Singapore Global Network. Before we end completely, I do have a favor to ask. So we have a post-event survey that would like to get everyone's feedback on, just so that we know what to do when we are arranging future sessions like that. So please help us scan that and just click on the survey. It'll take less than 5 minutes, I promise. Yeah, so I think that's the end of our session. Thanks very much, everyone, and see you at the next one.
Thank you, pleasure.
Everyone, and thank you for your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.